Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here at YETI for our Blackhawks Insider podcast. I'd like to bring to the stage our two hosts for today. Please welcome Carter Baum and Chris Cook. And we welcome our guests for our podcast. Please welcome Patrick Sharp and Adam Burish.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carter Baum, Chris Cook on the end, and of course the two distinguished guests, Adam Burish and Patrick Sharp in the middle. Welcome to Blackhawks Insider, our weekly official podcast of the Chicago Blackhawks. Gentlemen, we have a lot of fun stuff to get into here at the beautiful YETI store in Wicker Park. We have a lot to discuss. We'll have some fun along the way, but the Blackhawks coming off a game last night, a 6-3 loss to the New York Rangers. A couple things coming out of that game that I want to get into before we have maybe a little fun later in the show. But first off, I just want to get each of you's general takeaway of kind of what this team is looking like right now and what we've seen over the last week. And things are really starting to become interesting around the organization.
Chris, you lead us here.
Yeah, interesting is the right word. I was in the dressing room after the game last night, and I'd never seen some of the players as angry. I've never seen Jeremy Colleton as angry as he seemed. Not a very emotional guy as far as showing it to the people, but he was very angry at what happened there, and there was an energy level that was not there last night that I think is needed every game now, right? I mean, you're in a situation where you need 2 points every time, and they didn't have it. Played a decent second period, but other than that, they did not bring forth the effort. Jonathan Taves said it. Drake Kajula said it. Pretty much everybody on that team said we need to be better from Jump Street, and they weren't. And I just would ask you guys, how disappointing is it to knowing what the stakes are, knowing you need to win, right? You need to get some points. You can't look at what everybody else is doing. You need to get some points, and to come out with that effort last night, I think was disappointing to everybody.
Yeah, that one stung. Home ice against the Rangers, NBC in the building. It was a big game points-wise for both teams, and the Rangers just kind of outplayed the Hawks from start to finish. A frustrating loss, frustrating week in Canada. Last week with that road trip, a lot at stake, and didn't go quite as planned. I go back to that first game of that road trip where they were up 2-0 in Winnipeg. Very difficult place to play. End up losing that game. Those are points that you're not going to get back, and the Jets are a team that are sitting in a playoff spot right now. So times are tough for the Blackhawks. Plenty of games left, but it's not looking good right now.
First, I just want everybody to know Sharp's playing sick today too, so he's been a little under the weather. But he said he's like Michael Jordan right now, playing through it. And
The flu game.
For the people listening, this YETI store, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these coolers, and I think I bought 2 of them, and one of them goes missing every summer at my cookouts when I have with my buddies. So if my buddies are listening, you owe me a couple of these coolers you've stolen from me. But yeah, Chris and Carter, it was. I think sometimes as a player, when you're battling, and you're looking at the standings, which this team is, and you go on this road trip and you go 1-4, you come back home and you're just disappointed, and I think sometimes that carries over. And I think last night it was one of those situations where you get 3 points or 2 points out of a spot, and all of a sudden you go on this road trip and you kind of lay an egg a little bit, and it just lingers, and you can't get over it. And then you come home and you're thinking, all right, we're back home, we're going to have a good game, we're going to relax, we're going to ease into this thing, and you kind of forget you can't ease into games now. And teams are good, and the Rangers are a team that are going through a bit of a rebuild, but they've got some dangerous players, and all of a sudden you don't show up on time, and you sit back, and next thing you know, you're down a couple goals, and it's tough to come back in this league.
Or I just want to compliment, you're dressed for the part too, wearing the camo.
How'd you see me?
I don't know. You're close enough where I can at least see your eyes, but I don't know for anyone watching in the audience.
Yeah.
But you're dressed for the part.
Dress the part.
You're looking good though.
Thanks.
I didn't doubt anything from either one of you two. Chris and I, we're just kind of here. Everyone's here to see you guys. A positive takeaway from last night is something we've talked about time and time again, week after week. Dominic Kubalik continues to just take over some of the offense for this team. Another 2 goals last night. He now has 25 on the year. He's 6 goals clear of Victor Olofsson for the rookie scoring lead in terms of goals. He's only 7 points off Quinn Hughes in terms of the point total for rookies. This is someone who 2.5 months ago, he was having a nice season, a good first season with the team, a little bit of an older rookie than maybe most. And within the last 2 months, he's worked his way into Calder Trophy conversations. And I mean, he's right there with the top of the leaderboard in terms of rookie goal scorers, rookie defensemen this season. I mean, it's every single game from him pretty much.
Yeah, Chris, you talked about it. We've talked about him a few times on this podcast, and Chris has talked about how before the season, the summer, Stan was really the only guy that said he's going to be a top 6 guys for us. And I think all of us were like, who is this guy? Kubalik, like from never played in North America. The Kings kind of punted him off and said, no, we don't have space for you here. And Stan said, no, we want this guy, and he's going to be a stud for us. And Stan nailed it on that one. Yeah, he's a shooter, and he's a guy that can find the net. And even on pucks last night, that shot that he made, I don't think he got all of it. I don't think he hit quite all of it, but he's in the right spot. He gets it off his stick quick. And I think a month ago we talked about he's probably not going to be in the Calder race. Well, heck, if he keeps going like he is, I don't know how he isn't.
Yeah, he's making it interesting, isn't he? Cale Makar in Colorado's probably the front runner. Quinn Hughes in Vancouver's the other one. And Kubalik's got to be right there at number 3. And if he keeps scoring at this pace, we'll see what happens down the stretch. But his game definitely went to another level when he was put on the top line with Jonathan Taves, who, in my opinion, is playing some great hockey right now. Kubalik can skate, he can shoot, he knows where the net is. And the best part, the thing I like most about him is after the game last night, the media was surrounding him. He didn't want to talk about himself. I know that's something that a lot of players would like to do. You score 2 goals, you want to pump your own tires, answer a few questions. He had no part of it. He was upset with the loss, and that shows me he cares about winning. And another good find by the Blackhawks to bring in Kubalik.
Let me just ask, when you're doing the national game, Sharpie, when you're out at NBC, I think we all know that the media plays a role in this, right? Whether guys get certain accolades or not. Is he talked about out there? Like, does Keith Jones and Milbury and the guys at NBC, are they starting to talk and show highlights of him a little more?
Not really. I think that's my job. I got to start pumping his tires on the national stage a little bit more. It seems like it's Makar and Quinn Hughes for that rookie race, and rightfully so. Those guys are pretty special players. But what Kubalik has done in his first season has been impressive. You don't lead leagues in scoring and not be able to come over and do it in the NHL. There's a reason why this guy can put pucks in the back of the net. He's having fun doing it. Maybe his age hurts him a little bit in that rookie scoring race. What is he, 25 years old, 24 years old? So that could be playing a role, but he's got 25 goals on his way to 30, so it'll be interesting to see what happens down the stretch.
You know, I'm actually still plugged in with the Professional Hockey Writers Association. I'm not a member now, but I was for years, and I know all those guys on Twitter and email, and he is getting some buzz.
Is
there are
he?
some guys,
The
Bob
national
McKenzie,
writers are starting to pick up on him a little bit.
Drager, those guys are all saying, hey, look at this Kubalik guy. He's got 25 goals, on pace for 32, and the best shot on the team, maybe the best shot since this guy here, and he gets it off, and he finds his space. I think it's important there that you can have a great shot, you know, he can skate well, but he's able to find some gaps in the defense, which I think is very important. And boy, when he's right in front, now he's on the PP1, so you got a little more time and space there, and when he gets the puck, bang, it's in the goal.
That's something that is a good point as well. He wasn't even on the power play for most of the year.
Right.
He was playing the second unit, which is a big difference between the first and second unit on most power plays. You usually get the last 30 seconds, you're caught in the middle of a change. The production just isn't quite there, but the fact that he's on the first power play unit now, I'd expect a few more goals down the stretch.
And they've loaded him up on the one side. I mean, the power play's kind of centered to get to that big shot that he has, that big cannon.
Yeah, I like it. I like the move that they made last night. Put Kane on his strong side. It's an option. It's a lefty passing to a bunch of lefties. You got Taves, you got Kubalik, Dylan Strome can be an option out there, Gustafsson at the point. You see Winnipeg have success with that. Wheeler as a righty passing all right-handed shots. Well, why can't we do that with Kubalik, letting them rip from the right hash mark there?
I want to read through this list. He's already 8th in terms of Blackhawks rookies goal scoring with his 24th and 25th last night. There's only 7 guys ahead of him. Jeremy Romick, Dennis Savard, Alex DeBrincat, Eric Daze, and Artemi Panarin. He's within 5 goals of all 5 of those names. So realistically, he could put himself 3rd on this list by the end of the season in a matter of weeks, and only Steve Larmer and Daryl Sutter are ahead of him.
Did Panarin win Rookie of the Year? He did, right?
He did,
He did.
yeah, he did win it, and but I think if you look at Kubalik, and they've had some Gustafson's another guy, Panarin. The Blackhawks European scouting department doesn't get a whole lot of press. They've done an excellent job. They go out there, they're seeing hundreds of games. They're often far-flung Europe, places you don't even know how to get back from, and they've brought in these gems, these guys, and frankly, they needed it because a guy like DeBrincat's not having the year that he had. He's no longer on a power play one, but you got a guy who can come in and score 32 games. That's a shout out to Stan Bowman and the European scouting staff. And those are the guys who are going to be the basis of this team next 2, 3, 4 years.
Right. I ask about Panarin winning it because he was a little bit older and had professional hockey under his belt, years of it, before he came to the NHL. So why can't Kubalik do the same?
It's interesting to see that he's almost on the same production level, at least in goals, as Panarin. He doesn't have as many assists as maybe some of the other rookies that are around, but he's still putting out those numbers, and he's kind of flying under the radar nationally, like we talked about.
That's my fault.
Your fault.
Get
Well,
going,
we'll
Sharp.
work on it.
Start
We'll get
pumping
there.
them up.
You got some time left. You got about 6 weeks left in the regular season. We'll get some time there. You mentioned Alex DeBrincat, Chris. We've talked about him a couple times as well. He had a goal the other night. Admitted after the game, it felt good. Hopefully, he can start to find a rhythm. I think some of it is the team finding its own rhythm right now as well offensively, outside of maybe that top line. But he's a guy that we've seen really have bits throughout the season where he's scoring some goals, but hasn't put it together throughout the entire campaign like we saw last year. Sharpie, as a goal scorer, what do you see from him? I mean, the tools are obviously still there, maybe lacking a little confidence, but what do you see from him as someone who was a high offensive output player yourself?
Hanging around Cat, he's a guy that thinks hockey a lot, much like I did. And I wonder how much of a release he gets from the game, to be quite honest with you. He takes good care of himself on and off the ice, but in a ball negatively. So he's in a tough stretch right now. He's still getting some looks. A guy like Cat needs someone to play with. He needs a partner. And for a long time there, last season it was Dylan Strome and Cat that were filling the score sheet just about every night. Hasn't seemed to happen as much this year, and it's cost the Hawks a little bit. So it's an area that needs to improve. The power play, for whatever reason, is struggling this year, and that's baffling to me because when Jeremy Carlton took that team over, it was clicking at such a high percentage for a long time, and a big reason was Dylan Strome and Alex DeBrincat. So if the Hawks could improve in one area right now, it would be get those two guys going. Now you got Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. We mentioned Kubalik. Brandon Saad's been playing great hockey all season long, especially since he came back from his injury. So those two guys, Cat and Strome, would be helpful if they get scoring.
For me, the positive, and I don't know about scoring streaks because I had like season-long droughts, not just like month-long droughts. But I watched it, and even Sharp's a perfect example. He would go 2 or 3 weeks without a goal, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, he's not scoring. What's going on here? And at the end of the season, you look, and he's got 35 goals. Sharpie, that's how it goes, kind of. Goal scorers, they get streaky, they go hot and cold, and if you don't, your name's Wayne Gretzky or Alex Ovechkin. So that happens, and that's how these goal scorers are. I think Cat, before the end of the season, I think he'll break out of it, and he'll go score 8 goals in 5 games, and that'll happen, and then he'll get hot again, and then it'll go. But for me, goal scorers don't have big years when your power play stinks. And when your power play struggles and you're clicking at 5%, that hurts your stats. It hurts your confidence. I think a lot of players get confidence getting points, getting cookies, getting goals on the power play. When that doesn't happen, I think it trickles into your 5-on-5 game a little bit.
He scored 41 goals last year, too. That's a lot of goals for a young player. So he's a star player in the league, and I think people take him very seriously when they see the Hawks roll into town or they come to play against Chicago. They know that DeBrincat's a guy that can hurt you on the other side. So he's getting a little more attention this year than he had in years past, but that's something that he can work through, and he will, and he'll be a great goal scorer for this team
Even
for years to
last
come.
year, 41 goals. I remember there was a couple weeks where we're talking about, geez, Alex has got to get going here. He's getting to 41 goals that year, and we were still talking about that. It happens. So I don't think we don't need to go crazy on it. I'm sure nobody's more frustrated about it than Alex.
Sharp, you mentioned the always thinking about hockey, which when things are going good, it's part of your success. But when things maybe aren't going so good, how do you find that balance between not being too hard on yourself, kind of taking a step back, but also looking at yourself in maybe a critical way and seeing what might not be clicking?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I haven't played in 2 years, but that's something that I constantly dealt with, was the highs and lows of the game. One thing you always try to do as a goal scorer is just don't hurt the team. If you're not going to put the puck in the net and you're in a little bit of a dry spell, find another way to help the team out. That's why you look at a guy like Jonathan Toews, why he can be so valuable for this team, because he doesn't have to score every night to be an important player for our group. Takes face-offs, competes hard, plays good defensively. Those are all things that DeBrincat can do, maybe not the face-off side of it, but he skates well, he can make plays, he can create offense by himself, Alex DeBrincat. It's something I want to see him start doing. And as far as not thinking the game, I don't know. I mean, I know he's a great kid and he loves hockey. Sometimes you take your foot off the gas a little bit and you start scoring goals. You know, you find a way to not think about it. I don't know, I used to watch a lot of season series on the airplane. Sometimes I get lost in those, and that would clear my mind a little bit and I'd start playing better. But whatever it is, hopefully he can start scoring soon.
I will add and give you guys some insight when Sharpie says, I don't know how to kind of turn that off, and probably what Alex is going through a little bit. What some of these guys do, the scorers do, is they look at their sticks. So then they're going to make a change on the stick, or the way they tape their stick, or the knob on their stick, or the flex on their stick. And when Sharpie says it's hard to turn that off, he and I skated 2 days ago together, and he came out there for a pickup game with 3 different sticks. And he had a shift where he didn't score, and he came back, changed the stick. He's flexing it. The stick was a problem. So here's a guy that's been out of the game for 2 years, and he's still messing with his sticks like it matters at an 9 p.m. men's pickup game. So I don't think he ever turned it off.
Burr, how many sticks
I
did you
brought
have?
one stick that I think was 8 years old.
I mean,
He scored some nice goals.
I had a
with that
couple of
stick,
nice
too.
tucks. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, he scored some goals in his career, and
And I didn't.
all those sticks, I mean, maybe you could have learned
If
from
I would have
him.
scored as nice a goals when I was playing as I did 2 nights ago, I might still be playing right now. I was on fire, Carter.
Burr
On
was-
fire.
He was good.
Okay.
I want to make fun of him here, but I can't. He was really good.
How many post-whistle scuffles were there with Burish?
I'm a skill player now, Chris. Thank
Oh,
you very
okay.
much.
I will
Let
say,
me try to grasp that. I'm not sure.
the good thing about the rinks nowadays is they all have the cameras where you can go back and kind of watch what happens. So we'll have to maybe dig up that tape and maybe dissect
Someone's
it a
got
little bit.
video of that.
We'll get it on the tape episode going where
right.
you guys can break down Burr's strong night. The other goal scorer last night in the loss, Drake Kajula, who at times, I think a couple months ago, thought maybe his season was done. He went through a long stretch where he was in concussion protocol, admitted that he thought about kind of just shutting it down for the year and, you know, letting his body heal. But he's come back. He's really added, I think, a unique spark to this team in that he can play on that top line, has the skill to be a top 6 forward, but also plays with that grit that he really brings to the game. He brings a different element, and I think it is a good compliment because he can go out and stick up for guys and kind of be a little bit of a pest, but we saw it last night. He can pass the puck and he can bury a shot as well, and really a nice all-around player out there to complement some of these highly skilled guys on the Blackhawks offensive roster.
I'd say he's a combination of Burr and me, right?
Could be.
That's a little inside joke between the 4 of us.
We were
up here.
talking earlier. I said, you know, maybe he's a little combination, not a direct replica of these two combined. And Sharpie was very quick to say, I don't know. What was your response?
I like Kajula. I'm going to save my response
Okay.
for private. But my public statement is I like Kajula. I think he works hard. I think he's got great skill. You mentioned it, Carter. He can play on the top line. He can be effective on the 4th line. And he's just starting to gain that confidence at the NHL level where he can score and have consistent offense every night. Playing with 2 pretty good players right now in Kubalik and Johnny, that helps. But I like how he throws his body around. He gets involved. He's hard on the forecheck. He can skate and make plays. And a nice complementary player on that top line.
He didn't have the flow that you guys had. I know that. But
No.
he's also,
Or the teeth.
yeah, that was Burish. You know, what I like about him is that he's a real professional. He's a guy who, in the dressing room after, will spell it out, saying, here's what we didn't do, here's what we need to do, here's how I need to be better. But I think it's, as Cardi mentioned, the versatility. To be able to play with Jonathan Toews on the top line. Okay, now we need you in the 4th line, do a little different role. We need to shut some guys down. That's a guy who can come in and is a real piece, you know, maybe not, doesn't get the big headlines, you know, isn't a lot of highlight reel goals, but a guy that you need to win hockey games. And there are certain guys throughout the league who are able to do that, and I think Kajula is one of them. And that's a guy that really the Blackhawks can use forward going forward.
Yeah, he's a gamer. Yeah, he's a guy. When I look at guys and I'm watching, I'm thinking like, how would this guy be in Game 7 of a playoff series? How would this guy perform in playoffs when everything gets cranked up? And Kajula has that motor. He's a guy that I can count on. I can throw him on the ice in a playoff series, and I know he's going to battle. I know he's going to compete. I know he's not afraid to lose some more teeth. So I like the guy, and what impressed me about him this year is when he was out for a month or whatever it was in concussion protocol, I was at the rink one of the days watching, and he was out on the ice by himself, just working like a dog, and with a couple of the Blackhawks trainers and coaches, and working on picking up pucks off the wall, little details that he knows and situations he's going to be in when he gets back out there, and to come back from some scary times with his head, and he goes right back out there and he's throwing his body at guys, and he's getting after it, and he's playing hard, and he didn't miss a beat. And then right away, then a game later, you put him back out there with Johnny, and he starts picking up points, and you can get a little bit too of what guys say and what Taves says after games, and he always gives a little plug to Kajula and say, we've got some good chemistry, we're playing well, and that can kind of tell you a lot too, that Johnny appreciates the work that he's doing, and Johnny's playing well, and he's doing it with Drake, and so. I think since he's come back, it's harder to do than people think, to come back from a month off of playing NHL hockey games and jump right back into it, not miss a beat, and that's what Drake's done.
Well, we will start to look forward in just a minute. We're getting a couple questions coming in on Twitter. I'm going to encourage all the questions coming in. You just tag at NHL Blackhawks. We'll maybe get to some of those as we go on in the show, but I do want to look at probably the next 4 days, which are going to 4 to 5 days, are going to be very important, not only for the next 6 to 7 weeks of this season, but going forward for the Blackhawks. The NHL trade deadline coming up on Monday. Just, gentlemen, your thoughts on kind of where this team stands, what these next few days might be like. There's obviously a lot of rumors swirling left and right of what may or may not happen, but we're seeing a lot of activity in the trade deadline market between some teams, and some prices are high, some prices are low, and it's always fluid this time of year.
I don't think we know what Stan Bowman's thinking at this point, but he did say a couple weeks ago when I talked to him, we're going to see what happens these next couple weeks leading up into the trade deadline. How are we playing? Are we going to be buyers? Are we going to be sellers? I think we have our answer. If we don't, we're pretty close that it's likely they're going to be sellers, and nobody really wants to hear that, right? We all want to hear they're going to reel off 10 in a row, we're going to make the playoffs. But at some point, you have to realize what you have, and this team has been around 500 all season long. I'm not sure what could get them out of that rut, right, of 500. So Stan Bowman's going to go out there. He's not going to give anybody away, but there's some assets there that you can get. They'd like some draft picks back, I think. I don't think you're probably going for a roster player that you can plug in and try to score some goals there. Maybe it changes. Maybe they beat the Predators tomorrow night. Everybody's happy, and they reel off 5 or 6. We have a different conversation next week. But to me, I think he's probably selling. If you're looking at guys like Eric Gustafsson, a guy not having the season he had last year, but a whole lot of talent there, right? Puck-moving defenseman, can quarterback the power play. Had a little tough luck in his own zone, I think, this season where he's turning pucks over, but he can bring some things back. What are you going to do with goaltender? You have 2 goaltenders playing very well this season. Both are unrestricted free agents next year. You're not going to re-sign both of them, so is Robin Leonard on the block? Is Corey Crawford on the block? And you guys can tell me this, but you talk to guys in the room. Yesterday we talked to Leonard afterward, and somebody said, hey, is this starting to weigh on you? You hear every day your name's in rumors. He said, yeah, starting to get to me. You think about it. You can't not think about it. I think Gustafsson said the same thing today after their workouts. I've got a family here. I've got 2 kids. My wife's asking me every day, are we going somewhere else? How is that mentally, at the trade deadline? I don't think either one of you guys went at the deadline before, but you've been traded in the past. What's the mindset around this time of year?
Yeah, it's a tricky time of year. Usually the Blackhawks are in a position where they're looking to add at the deadline and go on a deep playoff run. So this is, man, it's been a while since the Hawks have been in this situation. But you always listen to what's being said on television. The Twitter plays a big role in things. You're looking at teams that are looking to add players. You mentioned some of the guys that could be on the move out of Chicago. Anybody's up for grabs when you're a team that may miss the playoffs, and trades are a possibility. So he just tried to get through the week, focus on each day, whether it's a practice or a game day, and hope for the best.
Are you calling your agent? And you keep in touch with your agent?
I was
Is
gonna
that-
say, he had great jump in his legs in that pickup game we had. Sharpie did. He could still zip it. He looked pretty darn good out there. I don't know if those cameras are on, Chris, but we could maybe, or Carter, we could put a
We'll find 'em.
little package together of Sharp and maybe send that over to Stan because he was zipping it. I gotta say, it really was. But as far as the trade goes, my best guess would be that exactly what you said, Chris, is if they make some moves, it's to bring back draft picks
Yeah.
or prospects type of stuff to kind of build this thing back up would be my best guess. But you never know. I mean, you get a Stanley Cup contender team that wants to swing the bat at it and overpay for a guy to rent a guy or to get a guy for a year. You never know. You could get a big piece back, but maybe to get some first rounders or to get some drafts, that'd be my best guess. But as players, what surprised me a little bit in the game last night is I just know that when it's this time of the year, you kind of ramp it up a little bit because you're knowing there's a lot of scouts there, there's a lot of people watching, and if your name is in that or it isn't, you're kind of thinking, geez, I want to play well because if I do get traded, a guy like me, a bottom six guy, if I get traded, well, a team could just bury me in the minors. They could scratch me. So I want to kind of show off a little bit. I want to play well. So if I do get traded, I don't get buried. And then if you're a top-end guy, you're kind of playing thinking if I get traded, I want to go to a Stanley Cup contending team. I don't want to go to a bottom feeder. And I want to go in there and I want to play on their power play. I want to play big minutes. I want to be in a good situation. Or I don't want to get traded. I want to play so darn well here that this team can't trade me. And you didn't see that so much last night, but I think those are the three kind of mindsets that players go through. And then I can just tell you that on Monday, you get done with practice, and if you're not traveling, you sit in front of the TV and you watch the coverage and hope your phone doesn't ring.
Sharpie, you've been involved in a mid-season trade, a pretty important one, if I might say, in December of 2005, going from Philadelphia to Chicago. How difficult is that? You're in with a group out of training camp, you have your team, you have your locker room of guys that you're with, and all of a sudden you're uprooted, moving, in your case, halfway across the country, brand new locker room. How do you integrate yourself right away? How do you broach that in a new locker room, a new situation? How difficult is that as a player?
I think it gets easier the more years you play professional hockey. I think it's safe to say that you could go to 31 different locker rooms and there's a pretty general vibe in all of them. It's all the same. You got your funny guys, you got your serious guys.
Like Burish.
Yeah, right. You got
Serious.
Very serious.
you just get used to it. In 2005, when I was traded, I was excited to go to a team in Chicago that was going to give me a chance to play. I was coming from Philadelphia, where we were a first-place team at the time. I was a younger player. There was lots of good veteran guys there. But even saying that, I didn't really want to leave for all the reasons you just mentioned. It's tough. There's much more that goes into it than just playing hockey. There's lifestyle away from the rink, families involved. But going back to 2005, that was a pretty big trade and big move in my life. Worked out for the best.
I was going to say 3 cups and NHL All-Star Game MVP later. You're sitting here still in Chicago today. I mean, that one worked out for you pretty well.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else besides this YETI store right now.
There you go.
You talk about a trivia question. Anybody remember who the player went back? Who the
I
Blackhawks
do.
traded for you?
I do. I got my first fan ever here, by the way. I should probably mention. This
I'm still waiting for mine. So,
Her name is Danielle, and she's probably embarrassed that I'm mentioning her name, but she is actually my first fan. And when I was playing for Philadelphia in the minors with the Phantoms, I was 20 years old. Danielle was there cheering me on, wearing my jersey. So it's kind of cool that, I don't want to say how many years ago that was, but it was a long time ago, creeping up on a couple decades. So everybody, there's
There you
Danielle.
go, Danielle.
Anyway,
She's signing autographs.
Matt
later.
Ellison, right?
Matt Ellison.
Matt Ellison was the guy who went back. But I just want to circle back real quickly to the trade deadline. I'm not saying that the Blackhawks are going to strip this down to the studs and
No.
go for a total rebuild. You don't do that when you have Patrick Kane. You don't do that when you have Jonathan Taves, DeBrincat, Kubalik, and those guys that they have. But I think if you're talking about if you have a realistic chance to make the playoffs this season, and if you decide that you don't, then you go ahead and get some draft picks so you can build up the future a little bit. But by no means does it mean that they're not going to be strong next year, because we all see what happens. Teams can come out of nowhere, and the Blackhawks aren't that far away, right?
Totally.
I don't think they're that far away.
One of the things that happens when you do go to a new team, whether it's at the start of the year or even mid-season, you usually have someone that you kind of cling to take you under your wing, help you out. We see that a lot right now. I specifically having you two here. I know you guys room together on the road at times. You have a very close friendship together. We see guys like Robin Leonard, who has Alex Nylander living with him and his family. You have Adam Boquist living with Alex DeBrincat and his family. Kirby Doc living with Brent Seabrook. Could you guys have survived living together at home? I know there's probably some bonding that you do living in a hotel room together, but would you be able to do that with each other, or is there someone else that you would or wouldn't want to live with back when you first joined the Hawks?
I think Burr had enough of me just on the road. I don't think he needed me at home.
Same,
too.
right back. I don't think Sharp could have
Just a little
handled
taste.
another 10 minutes away from the room or the rink with me. But I think the difference was, and you read off those guys' names, they're 18, 19-year-old kids. And, you know, Sharpie and I were in college when we were 18 or 19 years old. And, you know, I'll just use Doc as a perfect example. For him to get to go and live with Seabrook, man, if I was 18 in the NHL and I got to go live with Brent Seabrook, one of the best professionals, one of the best guys, like Seabrook gives, you know, he gives up his time and his energy to make sure Doc's better, to make sure his teammates are better. So if I'm Doc's parents and all of a sudden he calls me and says, hey, I'm going to go live with Brent Seabrook, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. How did this happen? Couldn't be better. Other than living at home, you're with the best guy and the best family you could be with. So I think Doc's going to get the most benefit of this just by doing that. And then I think anytime you got a young kid living with an older guy, it just helps. You learn how to get to the rink early. You learn how to stay late. You see what they're doing, taking care of their bodies at home. The way they eat, the way they sleep, the way they train, the way they show up for stuff on time. And I think that's the biggest thing you get from what these older guys do as a young guy. I mean, otherwise you're finding in a big city in Chicago. I saw that thing you did, Sharpie, with Pat Boyle, where you're driving around. You're like, all of a sudden I'm from Philadelphia. I was at Vermont. I'm from Thunder Bay. And all of a sudden I'm in this big city now. Like, where do I go? What's this traffic stuff? When do I leave? How do I get there? So for a young kid, it can be a little bit overwhelming. Then all of a sudden you're in the NHL also. And so to live with somebody, I think, at a young age, I mean, remember Patrick Kane lived with Stan Bowman. So,
Well,
Chris, you could have invited me to live with you.
I've never been traded, and you never invited me to live with you either. So, but, no, I think it's you know, I did a story about Kirby living with Brent earlier this year, and I think that is huge for his development. Just to have the guts to go up to Brent Seabrook. He went up to Seabrook and said, "Hey, you know,
Yeah.
you got a room down in the basement?" And you know, Brent said, "Yeah, he does. He's got to do his own laundry, and you know, I keep the keys to the car." But you know, I think it's really development for a guy, especially a guy from Saskatchewan, I think he is, to come down here and get to know this city, right? Because I mean, I've been here all my life. I'm still wandering around the north side trying to find the highway, and it's so important for him to realize what you need to do off the ice more so than on the ice. And Brent Seabrook, you know, he's taken some heat from some people because of the contract he signed, but I think you guys know, I don't think there's any more respected guy in that room than Brent Seabrook.
Yep, I agree. I don't think we could have lived together in Chicago, you and I, right?
No, we would have had fist fights in the house or something.
Remember when I threw the alarm clock at you?
Yeah. Whipped
You
an
threw an
alarm
alarm
clock at my
clock.
head one day, yeah.
what were you doing?
I
I
don't
think
know.
I was changing the channel. He wanted to watch something, and I was trying to be a macho man and said, yo, you want to watch this? Change the channel. I want to watch this. Then he just whipped the alarm clock at me.
I probably hadn't scored a goal in 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
I was upset.
Yeah, you
Did you
talked
go out and
about
score that night?
I can't remember, but I don't
I
know.
thought he explained that injury to Joel Quenville. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
Joel,
exactly.
I injured one of your guys by throwing an alarm clock at him.
Yeah. We used to have fun on the road. It's
Yeah.
different now because not everybody has roommates on the road. I think if you're on your entry-level deal, you have a roommate, but back when we were playing, pretty much everybody had roommates, and I don't know, it kind of brought us all closer together, I think. You have little twosomes everywhere, and you get together in the hotel, a lot more talking, a lot more getting to know each other. I think it brings the team closer together, definitely.
And you two are still sitting here next to each other to this day.
Yep.
So
drinking out of our Yeti cups.
drinking out of the Yeti, alarm clocks nowhere near, so it's good.
Yeah,
probably
we're
for your
safe here.
sake. One last thing I want to touch on, and we'll get to some questions that are rolling in off Twitter. We've been doing this series on Blackhawks.com over the last few weeks, celebrating the top 25 moments in 25 years at the United Center. Chris, you had a piece the other day about a very special moment that, Sharpie, I know you were on the team for and at least were witness to Patrick Kane's spinorama assist. Before there was a spinorama goal, there was a spinorama assist finding Marian Hossa backdoor with a no-look pass, really wowing everyone in the building. Chris, why don't you tee us up with a little bit about that moment and just one of the many special moments we've seen from Patrick Kane in his career, and then we'll hear from Sharpie on just how special. I mean, I'm sure you remember exactly what that night was.
What's great about Patrick Kane is he remembers every goal that he scored, every assist that he scores. He knows his stats. He knows his teammates' stats. I'll come up to him and I'll say, your face-off or not, your zone entries, this percentage is like, well, actually it's this, and I go back and look at it is that. He knows that, and he watches videos. But you ask him about a goal, and his eyes light up. And there are some that he just really remembers, and that spinorama goal where he found Marian Hossa. I don't even know eyes in the back of his head or not, but that was really a moment when you realize how special Patrick Kane was, that he can create something out of nothing, and to find a guy like Marian Hossa crashing the net and knocking it in, and it's just been a joy to do these 25 and 25, and I think Patrick Kane is on 5 or 6 of them, and I talked to Marian Hossa for it, and I talked to Brent Seabrook. I talked to the next one I'm doing is Duncan Keith when he got hit in the mouth with the puck. You might remember that one, and what's interesting there is that he told me at the time, he said, I lost 6, 7 teeth. Turns out it was 10 teeth, and he went out there, he missed 7 minutes. He went in the dressing room, missed 7 minutes, and came out and played a game-high minutes. So it's really a joy to do these. But, yeah, the Kane spinorama a la Dennis Savard was just one of the special moments there. And, Patrick, you played on the ice and with him on the ice. I'm sure you always had to stick on the ice or it's going by you.
Yeah, I saw Kaner make that play in the World Championships the year before, actually, and he passed it to Phil Kessel. Backdoor for a goal, exact same play. Kaner comes down his off wing, kind of pulls up to hit the late guy, does the spinorama and just zips it over on his backhand backdoor. So when he was doing that to Hossa, I kind of saw it coming a mile away. I know that sounds stupid, but when you get to watch a player as talented as Patrick Kane in practice and all of his games, and even in international play, moments like that are special, and I saw that one coming. So he continues to amaze me, Patrick Kane, but what's cool about him is, like, you're seeing all these young kids come into the league doing the same stuff that Kaner does, right? Matthew Tkachuk, great player for Calgary, chews on his mouth guard like Kaner used to when he was a rookie. Clayton Keller, guy in Arizona, another American player, looks exactly like Patrick Kane on the ice. Head to toe equipment is the exact same. A lot of guys are taping their stick like Kaner. Austin Matthews, watch his goal celebrations. I know he's a different type of player, but they're taking the goal celebrations from Patrick Kane. His influence on the game is everywhere, and I don't want to make him sound old. Maybe we're a lot older than we are when we talk about it, but to see him come in at 18, 19 years old and continue to get better year after year and leaving his mark on the game, that's what I think is special about him.
I remember that. I remember 2 years ago, right when you got done, Sharp, or maybe it was last year, we were working a game together, and it was early on in the season, and you had talked about that. I didn't even recognize it, and I guess it goes a little bit, Chris, how these goal scorers and skill, like, they remember everything, and Sharpie's the same way. He remembers every goal. I mean, I can count the goals on my hands and toes, how many I scored in my career, and I don't even remember them all. I don't even remember it. But these guys, they remember everything.
They were all great. They were all
beautiful goals,
shelf,
just like the men's league game I just played in, too. But they remember everything, and you were talking about it, Sharpie. Now I kind of watch it, but all these young players now, Clayton Keller's a guy who plays in Arizona, and you're like, watch this kid tonight. He's mini Patrick Kane. He tries to be Patrick Kane. He goes on a breakaway, and he does the fast stick handles, then stops, then 20 more stick handles, and they all watch Kane's YouTube, and they watch his videos, and if you see interviews with him in pre or post-season that they kind of bank for the season, they all talk about he was a guy I grew up watching. Patrick Kane was a guy I wanted to watch, and I think that's pretty cool. And talk about, like, the ultimate compliment as a player is when you got guys coming up that are mimicking what you're doing. And I know Michael Jordan's the icon here, but what Kane's doing in the NHL, it's similar. He's changing the game, and he's changing, and he's influencing what these young kids and how they want to play and how they want to stick handle and how they tape their sticks and how they celebrate. It's pretty cool. It's cool to watch, and but it is impressive when you talk to these guys, how they know every single little play and every point they made. I don't know how they do it.
We were talking leading up to Kane's 1,000th point. I went around the locker room and was asking a lot of the guys, hey, what's your favorite moment? My initial thought going in was playing with him. But then as you got into the process, there's so many young kids on this roster that most of them grew up watching him. and playing alongside him is almost a dream come true. You mentioned looking just like him, or remembering where you were when you scored this goal or made that assist. Who were guys that you looked up to, or you went head-to-head against, or even played with during your career, where it was a surreal moment? You know, someone you idolized or respected to that level where you were just like, I can't believe I'm sharing the same ice with this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a ton for me. There isn't one. I just remember like looking across the ice, like scared to death, because like these guys had these big beards and they were like 6'5", and they just looked like NHL. That was when there were still those mean-looking guys on the ice, and these big monsters with scars on their face, no teeth in their mouth. So I don't know. I always thought, you know, when you played against the Red Wings, those were always the big ones because the building was full. You could feel the energy of the fans, and you see Lidstrom across the ice, or playing against Chris Chelios, I thought was cool. He was a guy that I always was like, you know, he went to Wisconsin. It's Chris Chelios. I thought that was cool. But those were all pretty neat. Do you have one?
Mine is Modano. Mike Modano
yeah.
was always my favorite player growing up. That's why I wore number 9 in Philadelphia, and came to Chicago. Number 9 was in the rafters, so they gave me the next number up, which was number 10. It's kind of cool to follow a guy's career and then line up against him on the ice. I got a signed stick from Modano. It says continued success, Mike Modano. Got a jersey signed by my 16-year-old girlfriend. She went to the Edmonton Oilers. She lived in Edmonton, and she went to the Oilers pregame skate, tracked down Modano, and got it signed for me, who was living in Thunder Bay at the time. I told Modano all this later on, and we've become friends. Our wives are friends on Instagram, so I know, it's kind of cool. He sent out a tweet when we won a Stanley Cup acknowledging me, which I think he knows I was a huge fan of his growing up. And getting back to Patrick Kane, yeah, there's not just one guy that cheers for Patrick Kane. There's thousands of kids out there that are dreaming about being Patrick Kane.
And I remember you had told me a story a couple years ago, Sharpie. Nick Schmaltz, when he was on the team, you sat by them in the locker room, and he was like, I used to have like posters of Kane on my wall. Like, he was my favorite player. Now I'm sitting next to him and playing on a line with Patrick Kane. What did Schmaltz?
Yeah, we were just asking the same question Carter did. Like, who was your guy growing up? Who did you try to be like? And some guys were saying, what did Sieb say? Sieb said Chris Pronger. Duncan Keith said Pavel Bure. And then Nick Schmaltz was like, Kane. Patrick Kane was my guy, which was kind of weird because they're on the same line sitting beside each other.
Well, I want to transition now. We've had several questions come in for you guys on Twitter, even a couple on Instagram. I want to lead off with someone you guys know very well has asked a very important question. In all seriousness, he means this 100%.
Spit it out. You're making me nervous here.
Andrew Shaw.
I knew it was Shaw.
Andrew Shaw has asked for both of you, do you both get Botox to stay looking so young and so handsome now that your career's over?
No Botox.
No Botox, all right.
My
You're an
sister's
idiot,
a
Shaw.
plastic surgeon, and
She does great work, Burr.
give me a break. And I asked her if I needed it, just because I was like, you know, I'm on TV here and there, and she was like, I would never touch you. She goes, I would never touch you. She goes, but at some point you should probably get your nose fixed one time, she said. So
Been broken a
I
few
don't
too.
know, but no Shawzy, none, but maybe
All right.
maybe he needs some.
Maybe he's asking for advice. I don't-
Maybe he was hoping for a referral, but we can't
Okay.
refer him.
Well, we
Sorry.
can talk afterwards. We'll figure it out.
Cook, how about you?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Ton of work.
Well, we have several lined up. We'll just kind of run through the list here. First, coming in from Mitch, going back to maybe the rooming on the road. So, what's the best prank you guys have pulled, either on each other or on someone else? What's maybe the first one that sticks out in your mind, Bert? I know you probably have many lined up that maybe you can't fully disclose in
Oh, we
in
can
a
share
public
them all.
forum. But
How much time we got?
we got all day.
There's a Yeti bar over there.
There's a
We could
bar
sit here
over
for a
there. We can
while.
get refills on our drinks in these Yeti cups.
I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite. Do you, Sharp? The one that I always remember, and that was on Blackhawks TV with Kempener, was the one where we ordered all those guys that food. I thought that one was pretty good, where we were on the road, and when we'd get into a city late at night, sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning, you fly in, and then you'd have a day off the next day, so you hang you put your order of what you want for breakfast sent up to your room, and hang it on your door. And we went and took Kane and Taves, and we marked off just about everything on that menu. So they had 2 or 3 carts of food, probably $200 or $300 worth of breakfast delivered to their room, and instead of at 10 o'clock what they wanted, we moved that up to 6 o'clock in the morning. And then they got stuck with a big bill too. So that was pretty memorable.
One time we changed got Taves' cell phone number, and we got the girlfriend that he was dating at the time. This was 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And we changed the information around to Seabrook's phone, and then we were texting from Seabrook's number to Johnny, and he thought it was the girl that was texting, and we said some pretty rude things that we can't really say right now.
I'm sure that went over really well.
Yeah, that
though,
was a
after
good
the
one.
fact. Another one that came in. How did you guys originally hit it off? Was it before you were roommates on the road? Was it something instantaneously? How did what everyone knows as Sharp and Burr almost together come about?
I think we just kind of lucked into it, right? I think we both had roommates. I know when I first came in, I was with Martin Havlat, was my roommate. And then my guess is that he just said, I'm sick of this guy. Can you get me a new, and he was one of the star players.
Because you're trying
on
to
the team.
change a channel.
I was scared to death living with Martin Havlat because I was a young kid and I thought he was a superstar in the league, and I was afraid to turn the water on to brush my teeth in the morning if he was still in bed to wake him up. So I don't know what it was. He probably said, I'm tired of this guy. I need a new roommate. And probably the same thing with Sharpie. Whoever he was roommate probably got sick of him too, and we got stuck together.
I think we just had a lot in common, to be honest with you. We were both young players that wanted to be in the NHL, that had a lot to prove. Nobody really thought that we were going to be NHLers throughout our whole life, at all different levels, right, Burr? I don't think at any
No.
level did they think that you and I were going to be pros, and we just kind of hit it off that way, sat beside each other in the locker room in training camp one time. And I think that led to us being roommates, and just became good friends over the years.
I think it was my first training camp in Chicago. You and I, they at that time, they had like 3 or 4 different teams. And I think you and I were on the same team, and I was just I was a nobody and coming out of college, and you were one of you sat next to me, I think, in the locker room in training camp, and you were always talking to me, and you're one of the nice guys. And as a new guy, not to say guys don't talk to you, but you're just kind of on your own a little bit. A lot of guys talk to you, especially guys that they know they have a spot on the team like Sharpie did. And so he was one of the guys that kind of talked to me and kind of encouraged and said, man, you had a good game today, or you're playing well. And we would just kind of talk and probably hit it off a little bit there.
I can't imagine you not talking much.
That was like
in
the
room.
one probably 3-week span of my career where I didn't talk a whole lot. Then it was just open the can.
It's all downhill from there. Our last one that we'll get into, our last fan question, comes from Gabriel. He wants to know, what is your favorite memory as a Blackhawk?
Whew.
I'm sure a couple involve some hardware, but what is your favorite memory?
I don't know. That's a tough one to pick one favorite. I'll just say the last memory that I have is just being at the United Center. It was the second last game we played, last home game as a Blackhawk a couple years ago, just skating around the ice after. I couldn't believe that I got the chance to do that. The game ended. I wanted to get off the ice, and Dunks kind of pushed me out there and told me to go for a skate and wave to the crowd. And I'm thinking to myself, like, who would have thought that would ever happen a long time ago, that I'd be finishing my hockey career on home ice and I'd be getting a round of applause from all the people at the United Center. That was pretty special. The whole day was special, to be honest with you. Joel put me on a line with Kane again for the final game. Kane was wearing the A because somebody wasn't playing. I think Johnny was out for the last couple games of the year. So Kane told Joel to put the A back on my jersey, which was very special. But way too many memories. That's why I love being a part of the Blackhawks family today, and always will be, because it was just such an incredible career.
We talked with Burr about this when he did his one more shift a few weeks ago, just kind of being out there and taking in the anthem and kind of knowing that you have that one last opportunity, because he didn't get to do that in his actual career. But going into that game, I mean, this is it. How much do you just absorb everything, enjoy, like you said, every last kind of detail of that, knowing that this is it?
I wish I would have enjoyed it a little bit more, to be honest with you, but it was a special day, and glad it's over with. The way I feel today after skating Tuesday night with Burr in that men's league game, I know I can't play anymore. I'm a little sore right now, but it was fun. It was a good day.
Burr, your favorite memory?
Yeah, it's the same kind of. I think when you're done and you look back, at least for me, I don't have like one memory that sticks out. I think it's more you appreciate that you got a chance to play for the Blackhawks and you got a chance to be a part of the organization. And yeah, win a Stanley Cup. I feel really fortunate to be a part of that team. But just to play here and the way the fans treat you and the way the team treats you and your teammates treat you, I played on other teams, and it wasn't like that. And I didn't get that same feeling on other teams that I get being in Chicago and playing for this team and now working here for the team and being around Blackhawks fans again. It's different. It's different in other places, and I think that's what I appreciate most. Obviously, winning the Stanley Cup and hoisting that thing on the ice is probably the best memory, but the parade, too. I remember that parade and standing on that stage and just looking like for a mile down the road of just Blackhawks fans in jerseys. That was one that, there's certain memories that kind of get stuck in your mind, and that's one of them, too, that I think will always be stuck in my mind, just seeing all those people that day.
Honestly, some of the best memories go back to like 2007, 2008, before there were Stanley Cup championships, and we were just a group of young guys that were so excited to be in the league and determined to be a good team, doing things like this, promotional events. Like, how much did we do around the city, connecting with fans? Not just the two of us, but the whole team was doing it, and we were all coming up together at the right time, and then to have success as a group is pretty special, and a lot of pride in the Indian Head logo.
What you guys don't know is we're going to take you around the store here at the YETI store in just a minute. We're going to have you pick out, a couple items that you think are really important when you're stuck in surviving in the wild or going hunting or doing whatever. And we're going to go drop you off in the woods and just kind of put a camera out there with
No
you
way.
and just see if you can survive.
I watch some of those shows sometime.
Well, that's going to come in handy. You're dressed for the occasion, too.
Cool.
I see only one of them comes back, though. I don't know which one.
We'll have to flip a coin and see. Cook, we'll close it out with you. I mean, you've been around the team for a long time. What's your favorite memory, even from the outside, maybe having to cover these two?
Yeah, a ton of them. I just something stuck out in my mind when you guys won in 2010, and they let the media out on the ice, and I'm walking on the ice, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Joel Quenville walks by, and he just looks at me and says, "Chris Cook is here," and just keeps walking. And I thought,
Oh, cool.
how cool is that? I mean, it's like, where else would I be, Joel, for one thing? But it was just fun. And it's, when you guys went to the Tonight Show, if you remember that, it was things like that are a blast. And now working for the Blackhawks, I really appreciate what they do for us and what they do for you guys. And it's really a first-class organization. And the wins will come, but it's also the kind of being a member of a family, and it's something I haven't experienced before in my career, and it's really something special.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us. This is our first live edition of Blackhawks Insider.
And what a place. Oh, my gosh.
It's an incredible YETI store here in Wicker Park, getting us out of our studio in the United Center. We get to see some daylight. It's dark now, but we saw some daylight on the way over here. A great audience joining us today, and we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love this.
So thank everyone for joining us. Burr and Sharp will be back up here in just a few minutes. They're going to have a little fun riffing on each other for a little bit. The bar is open in the back, and we're here for just a little bit longer, so enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thanks, guys.